name is Bernice Kleiman. I've lived in Shaker for 34 years, bringing my family here, and was formerly a member of the League. In the League Guide, all of you have mentioned economic development, growing the commercial base. But other than Launch House, I haven't seen any specifics. Well, the Van Aken Launch House is made up of babies. Where are you going to bring in jobs? People who will pay taxes. What are your ideas?
I take it that is addressed to all of them?
The world.
Okay, we'll go with the established procedure is that we'll go in alphabetical order, but each time we will move down so that Trey is not the first one answering every time. But this time you get to start.
Okay. Fairlease, thank you. Excellent question. We've been in Shaker for 13 years, and we've been hearing about economic development in Warrensville, Macon that whole time. I think that what we need to do is build mixed-use facilities that have part commercial, part residential, because that way we get the commercial tax base and we get the income from the residential tax base. And I would say that what makes me different is that this is the sort of thing I do for a living, helping organizations come together, aligning the stakeholders, and making things happen. Thank you for your question.
The development for Van Aken Warrensville is a mixed development use. You might not have seen some of the businesses that have come into Shaker because they are basically biotech, and they are also somewhat hidden in some of the office buildings. We have cellular technology on Chagrin that moved in and has done wonderful renovations right next to PNC Bank. Monarch Technologies, that's in the tower. Capital Advisors, TempPay, Equity Engineering, and as we look at on Chagrin and Lee, we have some other companies that have come in. No, you don't see storefronts, but what we have marketed ourselves is a community that will harbor bio and technology. So we have seen some companies come in. It's just that you don't see a sign in the window to state that they're there. Shaker Magazine just mentioned quite a few of them in their last edition.
Thank you for the question. This is clearly a very important issue given the nature and history of Shaker and its development. I have to say I'm a big fan of Tanya Manez, who is the head of the economic development, and I think she's doing a terrific job with many of the things that Lynn has mentioned. The expansion of tenants in Tower East has been very successful, and I know she's working hard to bring businesses in. I mean, you see a few of the small ones, the pie shop, Sweet Melissa's, which is going up in Fairmont Circle. I think these are all indications of a positive movement in Shaker. And I applaud the efforts in the planning to do the mixed-use development at Van Aken and Warrensville, because I think we have to use every available possibility to develop our tax base and continue our economic development. Thank you.
Yes, that is a key question, and this has been something I've had to deal with personally. When I came to Shaker Heights, the company that I told you about that was in Tower East left eventually in 1998 for 3 reasons. One is that they didn't have really good highway access. They also, the taxes were higher than normal, and it wanted to expand, it wanted to grow, and it wanted adequate office space to do that. So that's the Warrensville, Van Aken district that they're all talking about. We have to have a pro-business environment. We have to have real professional real estate developers coming in who want to make money, and they come in with an environment that's low tax, low regulation, and they come here on their own, and they're risking investor money. We don't have the city risking taxpayer money and trying to do an amateur's job, which is reserved for professionals. So we have to have a low tax, low regulation environment. Let's leave it to professional real estate developers to bring businesses in. We have great people. They should want to come here, but they're not because it's prohibitive.
I think the questioner asked for specifics. Let me give you some specifics. Let me tell you about the Shaker Ignition Fund. and I also want to talk about the Shaker Vision Fund. These are two new initiatives that we have adopted in council over the past few years, and they're being led by our fantastic economic development director, Tanya Maness, who's been recognized throughout our region as a real top-flight person, not only by the media, but also by business people who have come here to Shaker. And what the Vision Fund and the Ignition Fund, what they're about is they're about providing targeted incentives to get businesses to move to Shaker and to grow the ones that are here, with some low-income and forgivable loans, and also where appropriate with some grants. And my colleague, Ms. Ruffner, indicated some specifics where some companies have moved here and had grown here. And I'm very pleased to say that the most important specific is that we can prove that our tax base has grown directly as a result of the decisions that we've made here on City Council. I said in my opening statement, we've made some tough decisions. We have, and they're yielding positive results.
Okay, thanks for those responses. Yes?
Linda Lally, continuing on this topic. Economic development can really range from Beechwood-style office parks to some of the small businesses you've been talking about. What is the greatest magnitude of change that you would be willing to vote for as a city council member in the name of economic development and boosting money to the city?
Okay, Lynn, go ahead.
What is the magnitude of change that you would be willing to vote for in the name of bringing in more economic development?
Okay, Lynn, go ahead.
As we review the plans that have been developed with our Economic Development Department, I think that the thing that is most impressive is that we're looking at walkability. And no, I can't tell you that I'm going to support Walmart coming to Shaker Heights. But I can support those things that will remain with the culture of our community. And as we look at the developments that are going to take place in the Van Aken-Warrensville intersection, that is going to give us walkability. We are working at it very hard at Lee and Chagrin. The developments that will be taking place along the Lee Road corridor will be able to see entrepreneurs, the young energy, which does keep our community thriving, be able to move into office space that is appropriate. But I won't be supportive of some of the really big box chain stores. I can't see a Walmart here in Shaker Heights.
I would have to agree with Lynn. I can't really see a Walmart here in Shaker Heights either. I think we do have to be open to ideas as far as the magnitude of change. I think we're launching into a time that we could have great change and great development in that area. And I think we have to be open to the ideas of our city departments and of our residents. I think this is a time to be open to development, and I really like the sketches I've seen so far of the Van Aken-Warrensville development. I think we need to get this mixed-use facility in and look at all the possibilities of what kind of businesses we can attract to Shaker. And I think Shaker's such a tremendous opportunity for businesses to come and for our residents to enjoy this new development. So I am very positive and very open to the change.
I think that we have plenty of existing commercial areas in Shaker Heights. What we need is a relaxed and business-friendly environment, relaxed zoning. I thought that the duplex mansion on Lee Road a few years ago, they applied for relaxed zoning so that they could put in a B&B. And if you know what I'm talking about, it's just an amazing piece of property, two gigantic mansions right next to each other. The one in particular wanted to have a B&B overlooks Dome Brook. I mean, it was awesome. I mean, people blog about B&Bs worldwide. This would be so perfect for Shaker Heights. It fits right in, nothing has to change. It's a home-based business. I mean, regarding our commercial areas, the mixed-use development for Van Aken District that they're talking about is fine. I don't know who's going to build it. All I see is a road reconfiguration. But that's something that probably a professional real estate developer would want to do. That's what we're doing now. The asphalt lagoon in front of Van Aken Plaza is outdated and ugly. But we have to get real professionals with investors' money in here, and we can't. We
Thank
have
you.
to market.
Thank you. Okay, Rob?
Pass the phone. I personally, and I believe the rest of council administration, we are interested in attracting high-wage jobs to Shaker Heights. That's really where you're going to get the biggest bang for your buck. And that means engineering, that means software development, that means biotech. We're getting some traction there, but obviously we need to do a lot more. But I just want to put this very important question and topic into context. I'm willing to bet you that if the Van Swearingens were here, they would be pretty unhappy with this conversation about economic development and business in Shaker. This is terrible. After all, their marketing materials back in the 20s said, we will not have business in Shaker. We'll forbid it. We'll zone it, make it impossible because this is a bedroom community. So we've been confronted with dealing with a lot of history that we've had to overcome. And I think we've really come a long way. And I'm glad that one of my candidates here mentioned zoning, because that's something that I've got some professional expertise in, something that I handled earlier this year. I sponsored legislation which the council unanimously passed to make our zoning code more business friendly. And that will help attract business to Shaker.
All right. I do invite people to come to the microphone. Oh, I'm sorry, Trey, you're right. I didn't do the circle.
Thank you. Linda, you asked the right question. And let me share some specifics. Let's start with the latest census data. Shaker Heights average commercial sales per capita, so that's our total commercial sales divided by the population, $5,000. How do we compare? Cuyahoga County, $11.2 thousand. We're less than half of the county's average. Warrensville Heights, $17,000. You mentioned Beechwood. Any guesses on what Beechwood's per capita commercial revenue is? $46,000. They're 9 times us. And I would actually challenge that the Van Swearingens would not like this conversation. They developed Shaker Square to be the first mixed-use commercial district in the country. They knew that we needed a place to bank, a place to eat, a place to shop. So
And I thank
economic
you.
development is critical.
Unfortunately, they didn't put it in Shaker.
That's all right.
They moved that.
Okay. Again, I invite people to come to the microphones, but I'll ask a question here that's in writing while they come up. The other side, before the city, can you hear me? Before the city tax increase, a lot of cuts were made. Now that the tax increase has been voted on, are you in favor of restoring some of the services cut? And if so, which ones? Ann?
Thank you for the question. I think that's a very good question. I think that we have to look at our city services. I really think we have to have city services that work for you. One of the things I have heard about all summer at the block parties is a restriction on large item drop-off. I think it is now restricted to once a quarter, which is frustrating residents who are trying to rehab their homes or even clean out an attic in preparation for making changes. I think that's a decision that I would like to see revisited. I think there are other city services we need to look at, but I would also like to see the mayor's financial task force stay involved, stay as an overseer of the financial condition, and report back to the community what the status is of our finances, of the income resulting from the income tax increase, and also on our expenditures. So I think a careful analysis is appropriate. Thank you.
The point isn't, a lot of times government says that, we're going to cut services and then they've got you because you can't go anywhere else for these services. And I totally disagree with that. And this is kind of like predatory monopolies where they say, you can't go anywhere else and you better pay more or you're not going to get it. You're not going to get your trash picked up. I was really resented that last summer when we were fighting the tax hike, that they were going to say they were going to cut police, they were going to cut crossing guards, and the family center, daycare. That was just awful, and we knew they weren't going to do it. We knew the budget wasn't there. We tried to get the word out. We as citizens should be treated more like consumers and be able to choose, for instance, trash pickup. A lot of people debate about that, but why can't we choose trash pickup and get it ourselves like you do snow plowing in your driveway. And you pay for it. Whether you want to pay for it on the curb, which would be really cheap, it's practically a robot on wheels, or have your own backyard trash pickup and just privatize that would be one example. Other examples would be other services, rubbish pickup. I don't like the way they do it with front loaders. It should, okay, privatization.
Time is up, I'm sorry.
Last year, Shaker residents decided to make an investment in the future of the community. And I viewed that as a solemn covenant between the residents and those of us who have been entrusted with governing our city. In fact, I believe that we have a greater obligation now to spend your tax dollars wisely. And I think we're doing that. I know that the task force continues. I know that our mayor watches every dollar as if it's his last dollar, and we watch him do it. And perhaps most importantly, as one of the other candidates mentioned, we still have a tremendous obligation to deliver high-quality services to the residents. What I mentioned in my opening statement, I just want to take 10 seconds to mention here. I've heard from a number of residents around the community that there is some unease about safety. I share that unease. We should always be safe in our neighborhoods. And I want you to know that we're going to spend the additional dollars that we have to help protect you, to hire some new police officers, because your safety and the safety of our neighborhoods is our most important job on
Thank
council.
you. Ray?
Thank you. I'll answer the question on behalf of I estimate to be about 2,000 people I've talked with face-to-face in the last 6 months through block parties and meetings and so on. I hear a lot more people talk about Shaker Heights being an expensive place to live than not having enough services. Here's just one story. I was knocking on doors one day in the Ludlow neighborhood, and I met a woman who's a steel worker. And she told me that if the taxes were a little bit lower in Shaker Heights, she'd be able to fix that leak in her home. Now, who doesn't have some kind of a leak or something that needs to be fixed in their Shaker Heights home? So if we have additional revenues or the opportunity to do additional things with our money, I think what the people are saying is that it's not about adding services, it's about perhaps giving some of that money back so they can do the things they need to do in their homes.
My colleague Rob made some very good points, but what I would add to that is that though we passed the tax increase, we are still looking very carefully at our finances, and that you may see some reconsideration and some jobs added, but we can't promise you that you're going to see major changes because of the tax increase. The tax increase really made up for the lost funding that we received, and will continue to be very fiscally astute and very accountable for that tax increase money.
Thank you. I think we have people ready to come to the microphone. Let's go there.
Thank you. I'm Kristen Kelber. I'm a Shaker resident. I work at Metro Health, and I have 2 small children in schools. My question is first for current council people, but I'm sure anyone who could answer. In the last 12 months, what one project have you led or initiated which you are most proud of and which occurred because it was your idea, or vintage Rob Zimmerman or vintage Lynn Ruffner? Please be specific.
Mark, let's give you this time, and we'll,
Did you want the council members to answer first?
Well, I mean, anybody could answer if they, did something for Shaker.
Well,
Not
I'll answer
Okay,
if that's
go
okay,
ahead. I thought you-
because I think it presumes that we're serving in office, and then we'll pass it along. Okay, thank you very much for that very interesting and provocative question. I would point to some legislation that I mentioned earlier, and that is some significant changes in our zoning code. And that may be kind of boring and archaic to some people, and actually to me sometimes, but I do sometimes practice in that area of law. And what I have found is that if you don't update your zoning code periodically, you will find that it hasn't kept up with the times. I swear that when I opened up our code, I thought a bat was going to fly out of it because it was so old. But we needed to do some things to catch up with the times. So And a couple specifics with regard to that is that we're going to make it administratively easier for companies to come in here and get their paperwork processed and not have so many meetings and hearings, so they can get open and up for business a little bit quicker with less red tape. And also, we're trying to attract a very special type of shaker business, and the example would be brew pubs. I may have mentioned that before. I'm excited about the idea of brew pubs.
Thank you, Rob. And we'll let Lynn and then Ann go, and then if the others want to say something, we'll let them do that.
I would say the effort that I'm most proud of has been my work with the youth here in Shaker Heights. Over the last year, I've spent a considerable amount of time with the youth associated with the My Town project, from going in and speaking to mentoring to helping to see that the young people are actually able to find a place in our community. The youth of our community is our tomorrow, and actually for many of them, it is our today. And that's one group of individuals that I just have found personally that I've taken on a real effort to support and to see that their needs are met. And when we can look at a city that just this past year put 85 young people who are somewhat economically disadvantaged to work, that's a lot to be said. So that's been my personal project that I've taken on.
Well, Ann has service.
Oh, sure. Are we all in?
You're welcome to, I just wanted to clarify.
Right. No, I'm a new candidate for city council. As I mentioned in my opening statement, I would have to say hands down, it was the Shaker Centennial Celebration. It was a 3-year commitment I was hired by the city to run. It gave me a wonderful opportunity to work with so many residents, many of whom are here today, and from every neighborhood in the city. But also, it really gave me an opportunity to work with the schools and the library and our community organizations, and able to work with them to collaborate and to bring ideas to fruition. So I think it was a marvelous experience and has given me a very solid background for being on city council. Thank you.
Mark, go ahead, you'll be first next time.
Thank you. I'm also a candidate, not an incumbent. I told you about my involvement in the Taxpayers Union. We started with a Facebook page and a lawsuit and suing the city. But really what was the greatest thing that I thought was actually part of Ann's Centennial Project, which was really cool. I really thank her for doing that. Was a poster contest, me being an artist, of course. I thought, I'm going to make a really cool collage poster. And the research was just awesome. I went to the Shaker Historical Society, to the Historical Department of the library, and also to Shaker Life Magazine's archives, and they let me borrow all these amazing photos, old and new. And what I did was a theme for 2012, and also for 1912, and the 1912 was also in sepia tone, so you could see it. And I just looked at all these amazing history of Shaker, and it was just such a great experience. And I did win an honorable mention in the contest, and I want to do one for 2112 also, but that's in the works, and hopefully it's a great vision.
Trey?
Thank you. My consulting firm over the last 4 or 5 years has done a lot of work looking at the Shaker School District. And specifically, we've been looking at the achievement gap in the Shaker School District. And indeed, that research is one of the reasons that motivated me to run for city council, because I found that the performance of a child in the schools and the overall community that we build is not just a school issue, it's a community issue. And I'm very excited that this idea is catching on. There's a lot of discussion about the youth center now. I recently spoke with the head of a national organization who's prepared to come into Shaker Heights and lead this youth center for us, should we go down that path. The other thing I'll say about this is that it will help improve our crime situation by finding a place where young adults can go in between school and when someone lets them home. Councilman Zimmerman's comments are very well taken about the increased crime we've had this summer and the importance of that. So through a youth center, and also I'd support, if we need it, additional police staff and so on to keep the city safe.
Since I arrived late, please cut me off if this has already been visited. I'm Bob Kimblefield, Chadbourne Road, and Lynn and Rob have already heard this from me in past forums. We have Shaker Youth Baseball, Shaker Youth Soccer, Shaker Sharks, wonderful organized activities for many of the kids. For 10 boys with a basketball, or a bunch of kids with bats and balls, or a few kids with a soccer ball, the fields are all taken by the organized sports, or some of them are locked up. And I would like to know how people propose to handle unorganized recreational activities for our young people. Thank you.
Mark?
You know, this was a key issue when we were designing in the Lomond Association in my neighborhood. We were going to redo Gridley Park. And I thought right there, right on Lomond would have been a perfect spot for a basketball court, full court, and a skateboard park. Because I see this need for youth. I mean, where are you going to go as a youth? And, I mean, you got extracurriculars and sports, but if you want to be in it, what are you going to do? I work jobs. I think that's a great thing. If we get economic development, jobs is a great youth activity. It creates skills, it creates work habits, and you know, if you have, you know, you get stock boys and checkout girls, and this is how they live their lives, and they learn about the world. I really wanted that basketball court and skate park. It really got voted down. I don't know why people need to think about the youth. They got to have something to do. Thornton Park is a little centralized. It's a little bit further away. I would try to get more of those opportunities in other park locations.
Bob, thank you very much for the question. I'm happy to hear it again, and I'm happy to give as best an answer as I can to you and everyone else here. This is a chronic need in the community. We don't ever seem to have enough fields. We don't ever seem to have enough green space to accommodate all of our organized and unorganized activities. And by the way, you're not alone in raising the issue. I had an opportunity, I'm going to embarrass him right now, to speak with a young and I think with a very bright future young student by the name of Zane Eisen, who's the son of a couple of very close friends of mine from Beechwood, where I graduated from, now one time visiting. But Zane, when I asked Zane over the weekend, what's your issue here in Shaker Heights, he specifically raised the issue of the fields. And I recognize that that's an issue because we want to have, you know, good places for our kids to play. What I can say is that we've tried to address that issue. You know, we built the field in the median strip. We've redeveloped and reconfigured other fields. I think the issue, and I think the problem is a little bit better, but clearly we've got to do more.
Bob, thank you for the question, and thank you for the work that you do with the Boy Scouts, which is one of those places where young adults can go and have recreational as well as other developmental activities. I was at a block party in the Lomond neighborhood over this summer, and I talked to a couple young gentlemen who were high school students here in Shaker Heights. And they shared with me that there's no place to go. And they said, so we go to the Ludlow School and we hang out for a little bit, and then the police come and they tell us to leave, and we say, okay, but where would you like for us to go? We have young adults hanging out at Shaker Town Center, hanging out at the library, hanging out on street corners, and this is one of the main reasons why a youth center is so important. Entire areas of our community, Ludlow, Moreland, Lomond, have been working on this for 2 decades. It's an idea whose time has come. We need a place where there's an athletic component, as the youth center would have, and an academic component and mentoring and support for young adults who need it in our community.
In addition to the comment that Rob made, I did want to share with you that we now have a new director of recreation here with the city, and we certainly know the chronic issue that we have with open field time. But one of the things that I'm so proud of is that we have a new set of eyes that is able to kind of look at our situation and see how it can be addressed. So this is an issue that she is aware of. She's only been with that, I think, about 3 months, so we can't expect an answer, but she's certainly quite aware, you know, of the situation, and we certainly want to look at addressing it.
I know this question of fields has been a hot topic at previous candidates' nights, and it continues to be a concern. It is not the most popular topic I heard about this summer, going to block parties, but I have heard the concerns, Bob, and I share them. I think we have to continue to look at all opportunities. I am very optimistic, as Lynn mentioned. We do have a new recreational director who is young and from Shaker, and I think she's really terrific. So I think maybe we will have some new ideas coming forward, and I would invite ideas from our citizens about how we can better staff or have better fields for our young adults. Thanks.
Related question specifically to Trey Roeder. How would you leverage facilities to create a youth center that would improve academic performance, create community, and reduce crime? How could it be cost neutral?
Yes, thank you. How would I leverage current facilities? We have unused or underused facilities in the schools, the library, and the city. It's just one example. The fire department moved out of City Hall. And now Chief Sweeney took me through there a couple weeks ago. I came early to a city council meeting. There's 2 floor ceilings. The second floor where the beds and kitchen were completely empty. Just one example. So we would use current facilities. The other side of cost neutral is staffing it. I talked to the Boys and Girls Club. They told me for $225,000 a year, they can staff it with 7 people, insure it, manage it, and provide meals. We already spend $100,000 on the city budget for youth programs. The schools spend some money on youth programs. And with any number of the recommendations by the Mayor's Financial Task Force being implemented, it would more than make up for that difference. I haven't answered the second part of your question, but I fear I'm close to being out of time here. The last thing I'll say is for the Boys and Girls Club, there's one they've done in Cleveland that statistically has increased high school graduation rates from 87% to 94% and reduced crime in the neighborhood.
I'll give any of the other candidates an opportunity to respond. Okay?
Yeah, I still think that jobs are probably the best youth activity, and we really need to lower the taxes and regulations so we can bring more jobs and more businesses in Shaker Heights and give these kids an opportunity to get a ground-up experience, an entry-level job.
Thank you for having this forum. My name is Deborah Hegler. I am president of the Shaker Heights Chamber of Commerce. I really have 2 questions, but a statement. About 4 or 5 years ago, when we worked on an economic development plan for the city, the council did. The mayor declared and the council concurred that Shaker Heights was now open for business. During that time, not many people have been replaced, and many people, or some people who were retired, have been rehired. My question is twofold. One, when are we going to bring in the youthful ideas and vision that will actually make real economic change in our community? And 2, when will the Economic Development Fund become a fair opportunity for businesses to apply for this grant money and fairly be considered to actually get it? So I guess more of that question is for the incumbents. What will you do different and really different to open us up for business? Thank you.
Rob, go ahead.
First?
Yeah, we have quite finished that one.
Well, I think to a certain extent we've touched on that a little bit. I'm happy to discuss it in a little bit more detail. We do have a number of programs that didn't exist. Is the mic on? Can you hear me anyway? Can you hear me? Can you folks hear me without the microphone? Yeah. Okay. All right. So look, we, over the past couple of years, have adopted several programs specifically intended to attract and retain businesses. I mentioned the Vision Fund, I mentioned the Ignition Fund. We can point to specific businesses that have moved here and have grown here because of those funds. Biomotive is an example. Juma Gallery is another example. There are Monarch Testing Technology, another example. Other companies as well that is not time will not allow me to get into. The But the idea here is that we've got to be competitive because the things that we're doing in here in Shaker, other communities are doing as well. They're trying to attract the same businesses, the same types of businesses that are increasing tax revenues to communities. They want the same thing that we do. So our job is to be extremely smart, to be extremely aggressive, and to keep working hard, and we're going to do that.
A lot of the questions have had a similar theme here around economic development. And building on that theme, what I'm hearing is there's been a lot of talk about economic development. There's been a lot of planning around economic development. There's been a lot of documents printed discussing economic development, but where is it? Where's the proof? And I would say that's one of the two main reasons why I'm running, youth center and financial improvement. This is what I do for a living. The talk has happened when I come into a client, they have a plan, they have an idea, and then we work to implement it. It's difficult work. It's a different skill set than creating the plan. It's about aligning stakeholders. It's about finding that common interest. And when we look at economic development here, we need to understand the common interest between the city, between our government, between you, between the businesses, and build on that. That's the sort of work that needs to happen. And then we can enjoy economic development instead of just talk about real economic development.
In regards to Ms. Hagler's first question about staffing here for the city of Shaker and when are we going to start hiring young people, I think the reality is we seek out the best talent that there is in the United States to fill our position. May they be young, may they be old, that's not necessarily the issue at hand. Also, you're not going to see, and you have not seen, a great upsize in staffing for the city. So, unfortunately, we are not seeing a lot of new employees come on board. But as we look for directors and for our high-level people, we certainly usually do a national search to get the best talent here to serve our residents in Shaker Heights.
Thank you for the question. I think we have already started on the road to economic development, and I think we do have the youth and energy leading us. If I consider Tanya Maness young, and she is young and full of ideas, and she is a huge supporter, has done a great job with Launch House, which is also filled with a wonderful, it's a range of ages, but we have terrific energy and enthusiasm coming out of there, and I think it's very exciting. I think we will continue to move forward with this, and I think we're on the right path. It does take time. We had a real economic downturn, but it's coming back, and I am very positive about the growth that we have showed so far, and I think we can continue to develop this using new ideas, but using the foundation we are beginning to build right now.
Thanks for asking that. I am not a fan of forgivable loans and grants. I don't see how that process could ever be fair. It's usually some type of political connections that make that happen. I don't think this should be a role for city government. I really don't. Economic development, you could talk this till the cows come home. It's not going to happen until you have a positive business environment. Low taxes, low regulations. Professionals, entrepreneurs, they're the ones who have the vision. It doesn't matter how old they are. They're the ones who have the dream to make it happen. We have to let them happen and welcome them here. That's how you get this done. It's never going to be a top-down bureaucratic project. And Shaker Heights has got its own little bureaucracy, and this is what follows it up. And it's not right to hand out taxpayer money, public money, to private businesses.
Okay, I'll let you know that we have about 10 minutes left. We'll take the microphone here.
Carol Custinton, 29-year resident. Questions to everyone. One of the silver linings to the financial problems, vacant land. We now have a land bank with quite a bit of land in it. What uses do you think that land can be put to that would best serve Shaker?
vacant land, and you started the question by talking about the benefit of the finances. I do want to close one loop here, and that is you've heard Tanya Manise's name mentioned a number of times. She's our Director of Economic Development. She's fantastic. She's doing a lot for our city, credit we're due, as are other people. So I think this is about building that team, giving her support, bringing in some more people who can help her. I've engaged with her as a small business owner almost right after she came to Shaker Heights a number of years ago, and she's been nothing but knowledgeable. As far as the vacant lands are concerned, this is an interesting point that a lot of people aren't aware of. Actually, Shaker Heights population is declining about 1.4% a year per census data, compared to the county that's declining at about 1.2% per year. And people at Blackheart is asking me, how can that be? Well, we have fewer homes. Homes are being torn down. I was walking in the Lomond neighborhood this last week, and one community had turned the vacant land into a garden. So I think there's all kinds of opportunities for communities to use that land in a lot of different creative ways.
As we talk about the vacant lots that you're referring to, most of those lots are not buildable for commercial businesses. The homes that you see being demolished and being brought down is because they're no longer marketable. Once we find that a home does not have 2 restrooms, 2 bathrooms, and 3 bedrooms, they're really not very sellable in this market. So you'll find that many of the homes that are coming down are either foreclosed or they are properties that have been turned over to us by Land Bank, and that is when you see us offer the side lot project where people are able, the neighbors are able to build, to buy that land and build an extension of their backyard, you know, decorated and so forth. You'll see very few situations where we're picking up 1, 2, 3, or 4 lots, and it's a matter of, do we want properties that are unattractive to stand, or do we bring the home down?
I think we have some great opportunities with these vacant lands. As Trey mentioned, there are a number of community gardens that have started up in Shaker on these vacant lots, and I think that's a terrific use of land. I think that as neighborhoods are engaged in figuring out what to do, we'll see some other new ideas. There's also an orchard on one of the vacant lots, and I would just encourage the creativity and ideas of our residents to think about what we can do. I do like the idea too of the side lot program. I have talked to a number of residents who have taken advantage of that, so they have a bigger yard and a little more green space around their homes, and I think that is working well.
Vacant land is a sign of economic decline. It's a sign of people don't want the land. I hope that the government bakes the land. They're not preventing people from buying it. What we've got to do is, and I wanted to run for school board as well because of the property tax. I think as a city councilman, I want to try to use that as a bully pulpit. We got to get the property tax down too, because that's what's holding it up. People should want to come here. Look at this location. We're so perfectly located to Cleveland and all the other surrounding suburbs, and we got the mass transit, and this is such a great location. Why do we have vacant lands? That's a huge red flag that we're not doing something right. Let's free this land up, drop the property tax, make it affordable for people to come in here and buy this land. I do like community gardens, but I think people want to own the land and use it. Maybe if you have a double lot, it's got to be in private hands.
What a terrific question, and I just find it so interesting that here in Shaker Heights, it took until maybe the last or second last question to get a question about housing. It's just so fascinating to me. I don't have a whole lot to add to what the other folks up here have said, but I'll just make 2 kind of final points on the question. One, we do targeted demolitions when necessary, because that's what's necessary to avoid blight, and it prevents further decay in neighborhoods, it prevents crime and other type of inappropriate behavior. And then the second thing is you have a vacant property, and the side lot program is something that I see a lot on the planning commission because we have to improve lot splits and acquisitions and so on. And it's an opportunity to increase some green space in some areas where you don't have a lot of it. And it's also an opportunity to increase property values to those that are actually participating in the side lot program.
Okay, I'm going to let the student ask a question. We're just about out of time, so we'll make these last responses real quick. Would you ask your question?
I'm Leo Eisen, senior at Shaker Heights High School. I've been a lifelong resident of Shaker Heights. And there's been talk about traffic enforcement cameras. Traffic enforcement cameras, they seem like a good idea in theory, but there's many studies that show that they do not actually improve safety, and they also frequently malfunction. There's been many cases with this. Do you support bringing traffic cameras to Shaker Heights, and if so, why?
Okay, we're going to let Lynn start and we'll make these 30-second responses.
We've had some discussion at the council level in work sessions about the whole concept of the traffic cameras. And one of the things, I was totally opposed to them initially, but during that work session, once I watched the residents come in and talk to us about the speeding on their streets, South Park, South Woodland, and we were looking at mobile cameras and not stationary cameras. I then began to change my thought about it to help curtail some of our traffic issues.
As part of preparing to be on City Council, I enrolled in the Citizens Police Academy, and I'm in the middle of that right now. And we had a fascinating presentation from one of the officers who is the head of traffic enforcement. And after listening to him and his concerns with the way the cameras work, the way they're enforced, and that there are significant issues with the calibration of the cameras, I have lost my enthusiasm. I shared Lynn's with protecting the neighborhoods, but I think there are serious concerns. I think this may be negated at the state level. So, all right.
Yes, thank you. I think, Ann, you're right. I think it was defeated at the state level, but when it wasn't, I was totally against that. It's a violation of due process, that we should not be harassing citizens and chasing them away with these traffic lights. I'm absolutely fighting for civil rights. I sued the city of Shaker Heights and won in federal court trying to fight civil rights. I have a right to free speech, and that's what I fought for. It's the same thing if they're spying on you with cameras. There's ways to calm traffic that are so much less intrusive. I'm totally against any type of traffic or surveillance by cameras by the government.
The issue that I've heard most often at the block parties is about speeding. I mean, by like a 10-to-1 margin. Everyone seems to want to hop on their street or speed bumps, and that's not practical. I'm in favor of any resource that is out there that may help us better maximize our police department, better use our resources, and control speeding throughout our communities. I don't know if the answer is traffic cameras, but I sure know that there's a lot of questions about speeding throughout our neighborhoods, and that's why I think we're going to be having this discussion going forward.
Yeah, Councilman Zimmerman and I have spent a lot of time at the block parties along with some other people here at the table over the summer, and there is a lot of talk. Anyone who's on a street that isn't rounded or curved, you know, when I first moved to Shaker Heights, I got a little frustrated because I couldn't go anywhere. Everything turned and stopped and dead-ended. Now I enjoy it because it does slow down traffic unless you're on one of those streets with straight cut-throughs. And the citizens do want answers to that. The second data point is after some of this crime, I've had a conversation with Chief Lee, and he told me that we want to discourage people from coming to Shaker Heights if they're committing crime. So I think anything that helps reduce crime is something that I support.
There are still some really wonderful questions, but I want you to join me in thanking the candidates and the judges. So we'll invite the council candidates to move from the stage, and we will invite our school board candidates to come on up. So you can stretch for a second while we get that.